The Champions League final recently took place. PSG and Inter Milan faced off. That's when I discovered that France was lifting the cup for only the second time. This intrigued me. Until May 31st, France had as many Champions League titles as Serbia or Romania. But how is that possible? A Western European country, which is quite large and has a significant national record, only has 2 Champions League titles. Well, first of all, the French national team has won 1 Nations League, 2 UEFA European Football Championships, and 2 World Cups. So it's hard to say that France isn't a football country. France seems to have the sporting infrastructure, the fans, and the history to go with it. It's time to talk about Ligue 1, McDonald's. Well, first of all, who dared to partner with McDonald's for a sports championship? Who? Anyway, let's move on. I'm going to talk here first about the historical aspect, then we'll talk about the infrastructure and the fans. Finally, we'll talk about the real problem, in my opinion. From a historical perspective, you should first know that the first Champions League final in history, held in 1956, pitted Real Madrid against Reims. Reims was PSG at the time for the French championship. As proof, they returned to the final in 1959, once again against Real. But of these 2 finals, they didn't win either. After that, AS Saint-Étienne reached the final in 1976, but lost to Bayern Munich. Then came 1993, when Olympique de Marseille also reached the final and managed to upset AC Milan. It was the first Champions League won by a French club. Then in 2004, Monaco tasted the joy of the final, but unfortunately, they failed to beat FC Porto. In 2020, during a complicated season due to COVID, PSG managed to reach the final, but lost to Bayern Munich. Finally, the final stage, 2025, PSG defeated Inter Milan 5-0 and became the second French club to win the cup. So France has been to the final 7 times and lost 5 times. But we can still see that it's not difficult for a French club to reach the final. I mean, before this video, I would have thought that French clubs had been to the final 3 times at most. However, there are other reasons for this lack of European trophies in the French league. Let's talk about infrastructure and fans. Regarding the fans, in Ligue 1 they are really very strong. The tifos, the atmosphere, everything is as impressive as in the stronger leagues. However, in Ligue 2 or Ligue 3 the supporters are less impressive than in Germany, for example, probably due to a lack of budget. Regarding infrastructure, then I would say that there is improvement. There are large stadiums, at least in the top 5. PSG, Olympique de Marseille, Olympique Lyonnais, LOSC or Nice have fairly modern stadiums but above all quite large, and which go with their rank to shine in Europe. But indeed, apart from the Velodrome or the Parc des Princes, the other stadiums are very recent. And then the other clubs, at least in the top 10, do not have large stadiums and infrastructure worthy of their rank. This year, if we take the ranking for the 2024-2025 season, Brest or Auxerre have stadiums that pale in comparison to English or German stadiums in particular. But ultimately there are no real problems. The fans are there in the Supreme League, the stadiums are being modernized and are good enough to honor the rank of their club. In short, this is not the major problem in my opinion. And if the biggest problem of French football was this, and yes, in 1995 the European Court of Justice made a decision, the Bosman ruling. It put an end to quotas for foreign players in a European club. From then on, an English club could recruit as many European players as it wanted without being blocked by a quota, to put it simply. The connection with French football? Well, in the 80s, 90s, and even 2000s, France had not truly entered the professional era of football. So politicians and leaders did not encourage the financial and equipment development of football clubs. So the big clubs of the time, financially but also by their infrastructure and their titles, were not in France. France was behind and would pay cash for it. The big stars trained in France or even French, Lilian Thuram, Didier Deschamps, Zinedine Zidane and Emmanuel Petit all left France in 1996 for bigger clubs. Arsenal, Juventus, Barcelona, Real Madrid, etc. In France at that time, only Olympique de Marseille seemed able to compete with the European big guns. But the league itself was not attractive at all. Half of the clubs still seemed amateur in their behavior without a budget or track record, whereas the Premier League, the Bundesliga, or La Liga were full of talent, titles, budgets, and infrastructure. And you see, talent is leaving League One, but foreign talent doesn't want to go there. And this is still the case recently. This is the real reason for League One's failure in Europe. What does the future hold for French football? It's hard to say. Olympique de Marseille will hardly be able to win the Champions League next year. Maybe a Europa League. PSG could go for a second title next year. As for the other clubs, I see them shining mainly in the Europa League or the Conference League. Perhaps Olympique Lyonnais, Strasbourg, or Paris FC, recently acquired by the Arnaud family and Red Bull, could win a title in the next 10 years. Thank you for watching the video. Please subscribe, share, and like. See you soon.